tell you in a
Recording in progress.
Good morning. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you Dr. Shannon Moore, of Political Science at Hawaii State University. Her research is broadly based on two areas: stakeholder participation in public policy and capacity building for nonprofit organizations. Her current research is focused specifically on food insecurity and food pantry operations. She is the author of 2 books, 3 book chapters, and 18 academic journal articles. Her teaching is heavily focused on community engagement. In her graduate public administration classes, she has led more than 150 community-based client projects, working for a diverse range of community partners, including the Toledo Symphony, the City of Bowling Green, NASA, the Glass City Marathon, Ronald McDonald House, the National Park Service, and more. She has won several awards for her teaching at both university and state level, and she's going to speak to us today about global famine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's really exciting to be back here and to be back in person. And I have to tell you, in our department, being invited to speak at Great Division is a really big deal. And I was just remembering my very first, so I've been at BDSU, I think, 18 years now. And my very first year I came, at the time I researched on climate change. So I've done a few talks here. I was remembering and telling my husband how nervous I was. I was terrified to come and talk to you all about Great Division. So, and I was marking, like, then I got to speak when I was pregnant with my daughter, and then there was the year that there was like a massive snowstorm, and we had to, nobody showed up. And then we had the pandemic, Great Decision, so did one on Zoom, and so now we're here at this beautiful new space. So currently I mark my life and career by Great Decision. So thank you for all being part of my experiences here at BTSU. So I'm very excited today to get to talk to you about food insecurity and famine. Although I always tell my students, like in my classes, like we just talk about the worst things possible. So I have the pleasure of getting excited and talking about things like climate change and natural disasters and how we're going to talk about hunger and global poverty. But I'm also really excited because this is something that's become really important. And as a result of COVID. And so I'm now the founder and director of a food pantry at BTSU. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of food insecurity here in Bowling Green and our university as well. And I love the Great Decision reading. If you have a chance to do it, it's fantastic. And does a really great job talking about food insecurity and global famine. And so what we're talking about when we talk about food insecurity is the lack of consistent access to enough food for a healthy and active lifestyle. So when I'm talking to students about food insecurity, they always think like, oh, we're talking about, like the poorest of the poor in the world. We're talking about, infants in Sudan who are, dying of malnutrition. And in fact, food insecurity is much more simple than that, right? And it's actually about globally, we define it in terms of, do you have enough food to live a healthy and active lifestyle? So it's not, if you don't, then we would define that as being food insecure. So it's not just the, 5-year-old in Sudan with like a bloated belly, or some emergency food rations, or the food lines you see where people are getting a cup of rice. It's also about, do you have enough food? Do you have enough calories and nutrition to lead a healthy and active lifestyle? So this actually requires 4 different things. So if we're going to have people food secure, so globally and also at the local level, we have to have 4 different things. And so the first one is availability. So availability just means that food has to be available, right? It's kind of obvious. And so we need people to be able to access enough food, but also healthy food. And it could be that they grow it. It could be that you buy it. You might trade for it. You might, at the government level, we might be talking about international trade. We might be talking about importing food that we need. We might be talking about donating food, which is a big movement in issue globally. But we want to make sure that people have enough food and that it's available to them. So you can see, here during COVID, right? Suddenly the availability of food became a really big issue. And so thinking about supply chains, and when I used to live before I moved to Montreal, I was in Calgary, which is in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And when there was an avalanche on the Trans-Canada Highway, that basically kind of cuts right through. If there was an avalanche on the Trans-Canada Highway, you would see it, the impact on our grocery store. So suddenly there would be no produce for a few days. And then they would clear the avalanche, and then the trucks would be able to come through. And this is like a major city of 1 million people, in modern times. And we would actually be seeing a lack of food availability because of something as simple, right, as an avalanche that covers the road with snow and ice and has to be cleared out. So number one, what we need is just need the food to be available. So we live in a farming region, so we know lots about the availability of food, but we also need to make sure that the farmers are growing food that people need. This is a big issue globally, right, where we see lots of farms internationally being converted to food that gets sold and sent to other countries instead of being used to feed the people that live there. So the second part that we need to be food secure is access. So this is a red line from the United States. People need to be able to access food. So if you have all the food in the world, right, and it's a block away, you can't actually get there, you're not food secure, right? We have to make sure that people can actually get access to the food. And that kind of combines a lot of different things. So one, it could often mean you need to have money, right? And you have to be able to buy the food that is available. Or you need to be able to trade and barter. And so particularly in some of the smaller communities and villages in places perhaps like Malawi, like there might be more of a barter system where you're trading, you have chili peppers, somebody else has rice, so we're just going to trade. And so then we get access to food. It also means being able to get to the grocery store or being able to get to a market in order to buy that. And that was one of the big issues that came up during COVID, right? And we began to realize how vulnerable so many people were, and not just in the United States, but and globally as well, about actually being able to get to the food that was available. This is about transportation, public transportation, or being able to get rides. It's also about safety. And so one of the issues internationally, right, you are living in a community that's dealing with civil war. It may not be safe for you to go access the food. So there may be markets, there may be grocery stores, there might be lots of food available, but it's not actually safe for you to get there. Then you're not food secure. So that's one of the big issues. It's interesting when it's coming. Thinking about like food aid, so you've seen on the news, when there's a disaster and different organizations, show up and they have food that they're distributing. So you could go and pick up rice and oil and beans, but you actually physically have to be able to get there. And so if the roads have been destroyed by an earthquake, you can't get there. If it's, if it's not safe for a woman to go out on her own, it doesn't matter that the food is available and that people donated it, and people are very excited about it, they can't actually get there. I also volunteer with Ground Bag Food Project here in town, and I'm on the board now. And one of the things that we've been really excited about coming out of the pandemic is DoorDash, right, which delivering, dinner and meals from restaurants, actually gave us a grant to be able to do delivery of food to people who were unable to come to the food pantry to get food. And that's one of those pieces, right? So we have the food available at Brown Bag. We have lots of food, but not everybody is able to get it to us. So Brown Bag has been paying for delivery. So that's about to end. We're trying to figure out how to make all that work. But that's a really important piece, is that being able to access the food that you need. Then the next one is utilization. So this is actually a picture from the Canadian Arctic. This is Arctic char that has been caught and is hanging up in its drawing. And so use is about, use is one of my favorite ones, pieces of all this. It's about people have to be able to use the food that they get. They have to be able to, the food has to be able to be processed. You have to be able to store it. And you have to know about cooking and food preparation and safe storage in order to be food secure. So I was doing an interview, so I'm microchips on food insecurity, and I was interviewing somebody from a food pantry out on the West Coast. And they have a lot of international clients who come to their food pantry. And a lot of the food that they give out are things, canned tuna, canned pork, lots of kind of canned goods, and dried beans and rice. And one of the things they realize is that a lot of their clients don't know how to make dried beans, for example. And actually, my own students have no idea what to do with dried beans. And it kind of pains me because I can get endless amounts of dried beans. I have unlimited access to free dried beans through Feed America. We could fill this room with the amount of dried beans that I can get. But the students have no idea what to do with it. One of the things we also realized at our Falcon Food Pantry on campus is we have a lot of international students who come to our food pantry. A lot of them are coming from really poverty circumstances. They've managed to get enough money to come to the United States. They're trying to get an education because they want to go back, right? And then they're going to do well. If they can just get this education, get this degree, their life will change and their family's life will change. So they're coming to the food pantry, which we're really excited about, and so we're able to help them, right, and to give them food. And one of the things we realized is that many of them have never eaten canned food because in their country, they don't have canned food. I love canned green beans. I grew up when I was in university. I mean, that was a frequent dinner. I didn't have to do dishes. I was eating straight out of the pan. And my husband is like still horrified, but I was like, I love French cut green beans. I love them. And no one on our campus eats green beans. Like it's again, I have endless supply of green beans. So one of the things I realized was that particularly the international students didn't have any idea what they were. They didn't think that they were good. They thought that they were like the garbage green beans. If we had fresh green beans, they'll take them in a heartbeat. But they're not familiar with the can. They think it's the rotten green bean. And they are soft, right? You have to have them until they're like, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with them. And they don't know how to use a can opener. And they don't have a can opener. And they don't think that they should get a can opener. So we've actually, we had a donation. They donated 100 can openers. Because they heard me tell the story. They donated 100 can openers. Because it was like, I can't sleep thinking about the fact that people don't have can openers. And so they can't use the food that we have available for free. And so it's very funny because I have my students who work at the pantry with me, like they were like demonstrating how to use the can opener. And I think it's not intuitive, right? And so thinking about this whole idea of youth, if you grow up in a country, so I spent a lot of time thinking about campus. I spent a lot of time just standing there, staring at the green beans, trying to figure out how I can get people to eat more green beans. But if you grew up in a country that never has a surplus, right, we can things because we have extra. We're not going to eat them, right? So we want to save them, so we're going to put them in a can. And you only get canned goods also like like in a metal can, as opposed to like that you do canning your at home, right? You have to have the factories and the processing and the access to the metal cans, and then you have to have people who will then buy it. And cannons are great if you have an oversupply at a certain time, and you're not going to be able to keep growing year round. So it all kind of starts to make sense suddenly. I never really thought about it, but so we grow a lot of green beans, in the summer in the United States. Too many for people to eat, so we put them in cans, and then we can eat and enjoy green beans year round, even in the winter, when we're not growing them. So that's a very unique experience. It depends on your agriculture, your season, and your preferences. So at our food pantry, we actually are doing a lot of educational work, trying to encourage people to take the green beans, and this is what you can do with them, right? And the fact that they are, I mean, they're hand fresh, right? They actually are, perfectly healthy. So this whole idea of youth, to me, is just super exciting. And the opportunities that we have to educate people about cooking and how to use the foods that we have. We're starting to put together some like Falcon food kits. So it's like all of the ingredients for a dish with a recipe in a bag, so that the students can take that. They don't have to, think about what to do with green beans, because we put together a little meal for them. And so globally, right, this is a huge issue. We have, the food aid that different countries send to places that are in crisis. If they don't understand how to use it or what it is, it's absolutely useless, right? People have to understand how to, if we're going to send, our dried beans, people need to know how to use it. There's this great story about a disaster relief organization that sent, they put together a food kit for a disaster. I can't remember what country it was, somewhere in Africa. And they had a plane flyover quite low, and they dropped these boxes of food. So they put little parachutes on them, and they just dropped the food. And people were very confused because they thought they were bombs. But they're food, right? So finally, people realize that they're not exploding. People go, I think it was like kids, ran to go see what they were. Parents are like fainting, but the kids opened it up, and there was some information in the local language that said like this is food aid and who this is from, right? So people opened it up, and there was some rice, and there was some meat. It was like local food, but there was also peanut butter. If you've never eaten peanut butter, and peanut butter is not a global food. If you've never eaten peanut butter and you get this stuff and it just looks like brown mush, they literally thought that it was like feces and poison. And so then people thought that this very, this what was supposed to be a generous food aid was actually poison, because they had no idea how to use the peanut butter that was in the box, and it ended up tainting all of the stuff that was actually like, so the good intentions, right, didn't work because the local people didn't understand how to use the food or even what it actually was. So I think food aid now has gotten better, and people really focus on trying to make sure that people are getting the food that they're able to cook and that they're able to use. If you don't have cooking fuel, and people give you rice, but you have no way to cook it, right? It's kind of useless. A lot of these freeze-dried meal packages, right, which last forever, something wonderful for like the military, and makes sense with food aid. You have to add boiling water to them. You have to let them cook for 25 minutes. And if you don't, when you eat them, they will absorb the liquids in your stomach. They'll kind of rehydrate inside you and cause you immense cramps and pain. So again, we have to make sure that the food we're getting to people, right, is the food that people can actually use. And if you've had kids or grandkids, right, we know how hard it can be dealing with picky eaters, right, and dealing with kids. And now we add in, right, hunger and malnutrition issues. So we still, good intentions are great, but people still have to be able to use the food. We need to think about sanitation. So basic sanitation is a huge issue that's connected to food insecurity. So we want to make sure that people are able to wash their hands. We have the sanitation system. We have water. We have access to stove. All of those basic elements are really a key part of food insecurity. And then the fourth piece, so we've got the food has to be available. We have to be able to access the food. We have to be able to use the food. And then food has to be stable. We have to make sure, the problem with working in food insecurity is that you see people, and that's great, but like, gosh darn it, we gotta be fed again. It's nonstop, right? You can't ever stop feeding and eating. And it's one of the amazing things that I love about being in this sector now and getting a chance to work in food insecurity and doing the research and stuff. But you never get a break. And it's so interesting. As part of my research, I've been doing all these interviews and focus groups with people running food pantries all across the United States, and talking to them about COVID and what they did and the challenges and rising poverty levels and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that everybody has commented on is that they're just tired, and that because they can't stop. So you can't shut down for a week during the holidays because people need food. And so we have to have stability. So this is what I love this picture. So this is actually in the Arctic. This is a seed storage facility. It's a global seed storage facility. And so Svalbard and in Norway, and they are saving seeds from around the world. It's an international cooperation. They're saving seeds from around the world in case of global disaster or fungus. I mean, it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but fungus and wipe out some species of like bananas were under threat for a long time. And so they are trying to save the seeds, and it's all temperature controlled, a high security facility, and they are protecting the seeds from around the world in case we ever need to regrow. And so it's an interesting piece of that stability, right? Like, how can we be stable and provide a stable source of food for the human population? And it's interesting, out of all the things that the world grows, we actually only eat very few of them. I always have my students walk through it. I'm like, so what are the actual foods that you eat? They name chicken and pork and beef. Somebody will couple on say a fish or like a couple seafood items, and corn and beans. But the actual number of, and then it starts to trail off. Basic vegetables, but they really only eat maybe 15 to 20 crops that are grown, but we have millions of food items out there. And in my class, it's at this point that I bring in bugs, and I encourage them to eat bugs. So I have 5 bugs, flavored bugs, taco flavored, and barbecue, and salt and vinegar. So every year I buy these bugs. They're like crickets. And they're lightly seasoned, and I invite the students to try them and eat them. And about half will try them. I always eat them first, to say, they're totally safe. They're okay, they're crunchy. And sometimes you get like a leg caught in your teeth, but like a couple hours later, you're like, what is that? Oh, you're good leg. Okay. But in terms of the stability piece, right? But that's something we don't eat, right? Very, very few cultures in the world eat bugs, and then it's usually just as a treat, like a snack. Oh, a treat. Yeah, it's a thing, like a brief thing, but it's not like we don't survive on insects. But if we want to think about food stability, right, we are far outnumbered by insects. They're widely available. They're easy to raise. They'd be easy to grow. They're a protein source. You can buy them online. You can buy cricket flour. I'll eat a couple crickets when I go down the line at the cricket flour muffin. But it's, thinking about, by encouraging, how do we think about that, right? How do we think about the stability piece? How do we think about supporting farmers? How do we think about supporting agriculture? How do we think about trade so that we make sure that people are getting the food that they need and a wide array of nutrition, and that we have that kind of stability. So, if you, in natural disaster zones, that's tough, right? That disrupts the food supply. Areas of civil war that disrupt the stability of crops. Climate change is a huge concern. And what is the impact of that going to be on the stability of food, right? Things are going to change. The Canadian maple syrup industry is very excited about climate change because they're already seeing that maple syrup is being produced in lower numbers in the United States because of, and that's only likely to continue as temperatures, it doesn't take much, as the temperatures get a little bit warmer. Hard to imagine on a day like today. But Canada is like, oh, this is going to be great for us because the maple syrup is going to be farther north. And so Canada, maple syrup producers, very excited about climate change and the impact on their, because they are going to be able to expand the growth of their maple trees and the production of maple syrup. So we have these four components, and that's all food insecurity. And the reading in the Great Decisions really talks about famine in particular. And famine is a little bit different. We have chronic food insecurity, around the world, and every country pretty much has at least some experiences of food insecurity. At the moment, there is no global famine. No country is experiencing a famine. South Sudan is very close, but we're not actually in a famine situation. People are very worried about North Korea, that may turn into a famine situation. But right now, we don't have any famine in the world. But because a famine is a very specific situation, even though we spend way more attention, it gets lots of press and media, and when people talk about famine, but in fact, it's very rare. But in a famine, there's insufficient food intake, so people are not eating enough, and the death rate spike. So people are dying in large numbers because of a lack of food. So right now in the world, we don't have that situation. There are some places that could be like kind of at a tipping point, but they're not actually there yet. So the bigger issue is actually this food insecurity, right? It's making sure that people get enough food to live a healthy and active lifestyle. And we have a lot of challenges. A lot of times my students are always quick to say like, well, it's population increase. That's why, we have food insecurity. And that's actually has never really been shown to be true. That population increase does not actually have an impact on food or create a global food crisis or create food insecurity at a broader level. The world has more than enough food. We have food. It's just not in the right places, and not everybody is able to access it. But we could feed a whole lot more people than we currently are. So that doesn't really fit. So some of the challenges and reasons why, some of it is about agriculture. We particularly the increasing, agriculture for things like fuel. That's food that is grown that doesn't get eaten, right? It gets turned into ethanol or fuel. We have food that is grown to feed animals, not humans. And so in some places that reduces the amount of food that is available. We see globally places that are growing, it can go either way, where they're growing crops only for people to eat. So they're not getting enough variety because what you want to be doing is growing crops to eat, but then also selling and trading so that you can get different kinds of food. You don't want to be super dependent just on your own crops. It's not sustainable. One crop disease and you're selling your food insecure. You may have been growing it up, but you get a pest comes in and eats your crop, and now you're really vulnerable, and you don't have anything to sell. You don't have any money because you've been growing your own crop. Ireland, right, the Great Potato Famine, like that was a huge problem because they were so dependent on the potatoes that they were growing to eat. And then when those potatoes got hit by the blight, they had nothing, they had no reserve. They weren't growing anything that they could sell, and then they could buy something other than potatoes. And then conversely, you have situations where people are only growing food to sell, and they're not growing, villages and communities and regions are not growing enough food to be able to feed their people. And that it's often cheaper, right? So you need both. You need to be able to feed your people with like locally, regionally grown food. And then you also want to be able to grow food that you can sell, so then you can buy things and diversify. drought, desertification, deforestation, floods, all of those have a major impact on food insecurity. So if you suddenly have a disaster, you know, if your region has been doing really well, you're growing food, you're selling food, you're buying more food, and then a disaster hits, food insecurity immediately follows. A poor harvest, right? And that we see this here in Lee County, that when there is a poor harvest, we had that super wet spring a couple of years ago. We had a number of farmers who were having to access food pantries and food stamps. So they were doing everything right, and then Mother Nature had other plans. A higher energy prices is a real. People are really watching the price of energy because that has an impact. It increases the cost of fertilizer. It also increases the cost of transporting food. And we've all been to the grocery store lately, right? And food is expensive. So rising food costs means people make choices, and we are all in that right now. I can remember when we opened the Falcon Food Pantry a year ago, actually like a year and 2 weeks ago. And I could buy eggs for 99 cents. And I would do that. So I would buy, and we actually cut them up so like each student can get 4 eggs. So 99 cents means I could give eggs to 3 students, right? That's great. That's a great deal. Love that. I'm not anymore, right? Now the eggs are like $4.99, $5.99. I'm like, oh, no eggs. We don't give out eggs right now. Sometimes I get them for free, but I can't justify spending that much money on eggs, right? So rising food prices. And rising food prices are complicated. But we know that when prices go up, food insecurity also goes up. Food pantries see it. Food prices go up at the store, food pantry numbers, the number of people using food pantries also goes up. Globally, we have a growing middle class. India, China, Brazil, countries like that are rapidly developing. We have this rapid growth of people who are moving from poverty, right, into what we would consider kind of the global middle class, which is great, right? We don't want people to live in poverty. But it also means when you make that jump, your food taste changes. The way you eat changes. So now you eat more meat, for example, which is great, right? We all love meat. We want other people to live and be able to enjoy the foods that we do. But globally, that's a lot of more meat that we need to meet demand, right? And so the more meat means more clearing of land. It means growing food to feed the cows, to feed the chickens. So more mouths, and also less people farming and less people doing the farms that would feed people locally in the region. And so the more money you make, the more likely you are to be growing things that are going to be shipped abroad and not feeding people locally. So it's really interesting when we're talking about all this food insecurity stuff, that we kind of think about there's like that local impact, what's going on in like at the micro level, right here in our community or in a village. And then we've got like this global impact, right? Because everybody needs to eat. And in 2023, a lot of the food that we eat comes from all over the world, right? We don't have to go get it. We just have to go to Kroger, and Kroger has brought us produce from Mexico in the middle of winter, right? We're able to eat blueberries and strawberries. My daughter just this morning, as I was leaving, was eating a mango. You know, it's February in Northwest Ohio, and the fact that she's eating a mango is an incredible gift, which she found very annoying when I pointed that out to her, and she's eating the mango. It's really early for you to go all political science on me. But I think, but still, yes, it's very cool. I'm eating a mango. But it's what she takes for granted, right? As a 15-year-old in Northwest Ohio in 2023, she's like, yeah, I'm eating mango, I like mangoes. But that's incredible, right? I mean, even growing up as a kid, like, I never had a mango. Growing up when we lived not that far from each other in Canada growing up. But we didn't have mangoes. You know, and now that's something that we almost take for granted. So we have complicated politics going on. We have governments who are cropping up farmers, who are engaged in some, political price manipulation. And a lot of it is just about politics, right? But what it means is that there are sometimes incentives to grow things that wouldn't make sense to grow otherwise. So there's a lot of concern here in the United States about almonds. So almonds are grown out in California. Almonds are very water intensive. They take a ton of water to grow. Nobody needs to eat almonds. My husband might disagree, but nobody really needs to eat almonds. And the rise in almond milk has meant that there is a huge demand, right, for almonds. And in the past, the U.S. government has actually provided money to almond farmers to support their industry. And there's been a big backlash because this is in drought-prone California. The federal government is giving money to growing a crop that is not necessary and that is using up way more water than any other crop. And so other farmers are saying, you can't do that. Like you're going to put the avocado industry, out of business, and there's all these other crops that you should be supporting that use less water, that make more sense for this region. Stop supporting and encouraging almond farmers to keep growing their almonds. So the politics of all this is messy. It's kind of amazing. So we end up in all of these challenges. We have pests, insects, right, that can take down and agricultural diseases that can take down crops. There's an outbreak of a fungus among bananas that was raising concerns because the world has switched to growing one subtype of banana, the one we get at the grocery store. It turns out there's actually lots of different types of bananas. I had no idea. But we tend to buy the standard banana. And it's actually very vulnerable. So the fact that we've switched globally to growing this banana, because it grows easily, it's not very labor intensive, and you can pick it. The green bananas we buy at the grocery store, right? They travel really well. You can pick them and they ripen really slowly. So they're great if you're a banana farmer and you want to sell your bananas, globally around the world. That makes sense. You don't want a banana that's going to go bad because people aren't going to buy it. But what that means is if that banana species truly does, get hit by this fungus, then we're not going to have bananas. So those kinds of issues around pests and fungus, we only have to look at Ireland, right? The situation in Ireland and the Great Potato Famine to know what happens when you're so dependent on a single crop. So we have, another cause of food insecurity globally, and the threats in concerns about famine are just inequalities in food distribution, right? Food waste in the United States, although we have food insecurity here in the US, but we have immense amounts of food waste. And it's really interesting working at the food pantry level, both at Brown Bag and at the Falcon Food Pantry. We get, last week I had about 3,000 pounds of food delivered from Feeding America. So if you've seen ads for Feeding America, grocery stores will have, don't round up for Feeding America, that kind of stuff. So there's a Feeding America warehouse in Toledo, and I get most of my food from the pantry from that Feeding America. It's called the Northwest Ohio Food Bank. So I got about 3,000 pounds of food. So it was 3 pallets and up to my shoulder of food, and I paid $157 for 3,000 pounds of food, which is, and that's why, the food insecurity world, I never worry about running out of food. And most of that food has actually come from Walmart, Kroger, Meijer, and factories that are just going to throw it out. So it's food that's about to expire or recently just passed. Best Buy, still fine. It's just marketing. The Best Buy dates are kind of new. Or they produce too much, or it's I could get an endless supply of gingerbread houses right now, all the Christmas treats and foods and, you know, brandy things, anything that was red and green, is now at our food pantry, because the store can't sell it. And so it would go into, the landfill. But the fact that I can buy 3,000 pounds of food for $157, right? So there is lots of food out there, right? We just haven't necessarily gotten it to the people, right, who need it. The food aid and so that these inequalities, right? So the production of overproduction of food, we get lots of stuff that just doesn't sell very well. So flaming hot mac and cheese did not sell very well in the store, I'm guessing, based on how much free flaming hot mac and cheese I'm able to get. I always I like to when I see new products on the shelves, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll end up on my pantry pretty soon. But in some ways it's great, right? Like we did, I mean, not that I want to have food insecurity, but the fact that we have these food pantries and these systems in America means that food isn't going to go into the landfill anymore, right? It is going to go to people, it's going to be used, it's going to go to people who can use it. So sometimes I students are like, I don't know if I need it. Like I don't want to take food away from others who might need it more. And I'm like, I need it more food. That is not a problem in America, that we can get the food. There's enough food, there's so much food waste out there. It is not a problem. Which is that's one of the things that kind of keeps me up at night sometimes, right? Is that we have that much waste. So we have, and just, you know, other causes, it's just, we have people with, you know, disabilities. We have a population that's unable to work and to provide for themselves, right? Because of, you know, issues, disability, veterans, families, seniors, right? We have lots of people who simply are not able to work and to bring in enough income to be able to provide for themselves. And that's a huge issue in the United States, but it's also a huge issue globally. How do we get food to people who simply are unable to work and get the income that they need to be able to access, right, to buy the food. So thinking about here in Wood County. So 15% of people in Wood County are identified as food insecure. So that's an up-to-date number. And this is, we have a slightly higher rate of food insecurity than in the state of Ohio. But it's very hard. You'd be hard pressed to find a region in the United States really that has a food insecurity level below 10%. And, you know, spending, you know, even just one evening volunteering at Brown Bag, you can see it, right? We have, you know, one of the hardest stories of the veterans who simply are unable to work and don't receive enough government benefits, and so they come to the food pantry and to ask for help. So lots of families with young children, people who just go through tough times. Things happen. Life smacks them down, and we're there to help. A lot of people come just once or twice. It's just a short-term thing that they need. So somebody lost a job and they're going through a tough time. They're going to come. They're going to get food for a couple months, and then they're back on their feet. And often those people then come and donate, and they give back, and they say, you know, thank you for being there when I went through a tough time, because I don't know what I would have done. Because the bloody problem with food insecurity, you have to be eating, right? And so we're glad that we're able to be there for those people, for people who need support. So here in, you know, Wood County and Bowling Green, we have Brown Bag Food Project. So, and we actually, right now we're serving about 1,000 people every month. So people who come once a month. So we have about 1,000 individuals. So who are so I think it works out to at least it's about 580 families, I think, that we serve every month. And we provide kind of 5 to 7 days supply of food and some hygiene items, and also dog food and pets. And there are also other church-based food pantries here in town, St. Al's, St. Thomas More, First United Methodist, and the BG Christian Food Pantry also are providing some emergency food. The Cocoon Shelter, which is our local domestic violence shelter, also has some food support as well. We do not have a soup kitchen here in BG, and we also don't have a homeless shelter here. So those services are available in Toledo. We have the free school lunch and breakfast program at the BG City Schools, and that's a really important service for families who are dealing with food insecurity, that they can send their kids to school and they can get the breakfast and the lunch. That was a huge problem with COVID. And when the schools shut down, people were in lockdown, the schools actually provided, you could still come and pick up food from the schools. There were some delivery options as well, and some satellite, the schools provided some satellite drop off. But a lot of those families really depended on the school lunch and breakfast program to feed their kids. Krim will also send home some take home bags on the weekend bag for kids who need it. In the summer, the library, there's some summer lunch programs, food programs available as well. But summers are tough for a family that doesn't have, a safety net and is struggling with poverty because of school lunch and breakfast programs shut down. Then we also have the Famine food pantry at BGSU. So because I get very excited about it, we can have a little bit about the Famine food pantry. So if you want to see that. So the Famine food pantry started in part, well, really, I started to get involved in all this because I curl, and then COVID shut down curling. And so suddenly I got a little twitchy because I was like, I have things, what am I going to do in all my free time? On Wednesday nights, I thought I can't curl, and I happened to see Brown Bag posted on Facebook that they were still open, and they were, even with the lockdown, there was permission for them to be open, and that they'd still be serving people at the food pantry. And I thought, oh, I could help. I had time. And it's very funny because I left to go volunteer, and I said to my husband and daughter, I said, I'm going to go, and I'm really excited. I don't know anything about, the food pantry stuff, and I said, I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and just because it's a great organization, and, I'm just going to go keep my mouth shut and learn and see what I can do, maybe deliver food, whatever. And then I got home 3 hours later, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write these grants, and I'm going to do the plastic stuff, and whatever. So my husband and daughter laughed because they were totally sure that I would walk in and be like, tell them all the ways in which I had not kept my mouth shut. And I was just all in and excited. And so now I get to serve on the board. And Brown Bag has been amazing because they taught me everything I need to know about running a food pantry. And so the Falcon Food Pantry started because of all that. And because I knew I've been at the issue long enough, and I knew there was a big food insecurity problem. And actually 41% of our students have identified as being food insecure in the last month. So it means that at some point in the last month, they struggled to feed themselves. And so maybe it was, they were waiting for their next paycheck. They're living paycheck to paycheck. There's just a bit of a gap, so they didn't eat for a day. We have students who their families go through tough times, a parent loses a job, and suddenly the kids are struggling as a result, but they didn't anticipate that. We have student athletes actually who some of them are food insecure. Most of our student athletes are not on college. And they, between their practice schedules and their game schedules and their schooling, it's really tough for them to hold down a part-time job. They can take jobs on campus that try to be really flexible, but it's tough. So we actually, now at the pantry, we get some student athletes who come because they need just some extra help. We had a student who came to see me, and she had been sick, couldn't work for 2 weeks, and she's like, I have no money. And she was so upset and disappointed in herself. And she said, I just have no money. And I got sick, and I can't work. And she's like, I'm going to get paid in 2 weeks. And I was like, it's okay. I said, take some green beans. And so she filled her bag, and then she came back the next week, and she filled her bag, and then she never came back again. And she just went through this little tough time. Our international students, so about 40% of the students who come are big-picture international students. They are completely unprepared for how expensive it is to be in America. They have been hit hard by rising food prices as well. And they can't work off campus. And so they are very limited. And so, if they take a class, their computer, we have a student who's like their laptop broke. He's like, I'm either going to eat inside.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm either going to eat or replace my laptop. I can't do both. I was like, it's okay, I gotcha. Like, that's what we're here for. So it's those situations. We have students who they're trying to change their life. They're like, if I can get this degree, everything will be better. And that's our we're done. Things will change. If I can just get this degree, then I can get a job. And I'm just going to struggle for a few years, but it's all going to be worth it. And so our goal is, get that 4-year degree. We're here to help. That's what we say all the time. We're here to help. Going through tough times, we've got it. And so the Falcon Food Pantry, so we actually are serving between 750 and 1,000 students a month. And they can come once a week and they can shop. So we set up kind of like almost like a little tiny little grocery store. We're actually about to expand because we've been so busy. We kind of break the fire code every day. But it's been incredible. And we're so excited to be able to support students in this way. And we have very generous donors. ProMedica has supported us. Columbia Gas has supported us. We also run the BJSU Community Garden. We took that over. And so there's a community garden behind the fire building on campus, which we now run. So we provide food. We run a community garden. So anybody can come and pick produce. I'm working with a class. They're actually growing all the seeds. We ran it last summer. It's actually 6 gardens. And anything that's left over each day that hasn't been picked up right, we bring to the pantry and we distribute it at the pantry. So we're really excited about that partnership. I work with a team. I have a graduate student who helps me to kind of run it and manage it. And then I have 6 amazing undergraduate students who are my interns that I get to work with. And they just make everything fun. And so every time I'm like fainting and melting down about something, they're always like, have some chocolate. I can give you chocolate. Or like, let's make hot cocoa. And everybody, let's sit and like talk about the best things of our day. And I get this door that I get to work with them. And so they're amazing. And the students actually, they all do projects as well. So they're connecting my interns. So they're doing projects about the pantry and about food insecurity to connect them with their major. So they get these great professional development experiences. So we're not just feeding people who need it. We're doing all of this great professional work, helping the students to think about careers, working in food insecurity or working in the nonprofit sector. My graduate student actually just won a national award for the work that he's doing at the pantry, which we're really so proud of him. And so he's actually a student who came from like really tough circumstances, family of migrant workers. He grew up food insecure, and now not only is he working to make a difference and having a huge impact, but he actually just got this national award with like $1,000 cash money attached to it for the work that he's doing. So we're super excited about what we can do. We're just getting started. It's only been a year that we're going to be able to do. We're also doing a lot of research and teaching. So I'm writing a book about how food pantries survived and got through COVID and what we can do better and how we can make sure that the people who need the food, we're there to support them and that we can do it better and that we can really make a difference. Because as I keep telling my students, like once you eat, you've got to keep eating. And so our goal is to make sure that people have the access to the food is available, that they can use it, and we have some stability. And if stability for them means that once a week they're going to come and they're going to pick up some peanut butter and, you know, and pasta and sauce and fresh fruits to our garden, like, we're happy to do that, right? Because the problem is you have to keep eating. And we don't think anybody should go through and experience hunger. So, thank you, everybody. So now I'd love to open it up to questions. Yeah.
Can you talk about the situation in Ukraine and how that affects world hunger?
Yes. So, yes. So the question was about Ukraine and global hunger. So Ukraine is a fascinating, example of the impact of a crisis, right? Like, and a political crisis that people did not ask for. The world is watching. And you got, I think it's so interesting. Actually, one of my students, her family's in Ukraine, and she came over with her parents, but the rest of her family is still there. And one of her comments was that, like, life still goes on. She said, you know, like, her cousin was texting her because her cousin likes this boy and she doesn't know if he likes her. And, you know, and she's like, that's the life in this crisis zone, right? Is that life still goes on. People are still flirting, and trying to go to work, and they're taking care of their kids, and, you know, they're you know, having bad days and good days and stuff. And so you have this major disruption around food. And again, the problem with the food piece is, like, you just have to keep on eating. So there are massive amounts of of food aid that have been going into Ukraine. But one of the things that you don't want to do in a situation like Ukraine is that you don't want to put the grocery stores out of business. So it's that delicate balance of, like, if we just flood them with food, then everybody who runs a grocery store or a restaurant or whatever will be out of work. So how can we support Ukraine, right? One of the ways is, you know, to set up systems to protect the food supply, to buy local. One of my favorite organizations, the World Community Kitchen, which you might have seen. Famous chef, right, started this organization to feed people in times of crisis with hot meals. So I'm all about the, like, bags of food. He's all about that world is like the hot meal that you can eat now. But what he does, which I think is so genius, is that he has gone to Ukraine. He set up a team of people, and they work with local chefs and restaurants to make meals. So he helps to get them the food that they need, or to pay for their, you know, like a generator if they're heating, their electricity is out. So try, like, okay, if we need to a generator, you'll be able to cook. Yes. Okay, we'll get you a generator. So setting up all of those supply systems, and then providing, and then giving hot meals. So you're keeping people working, right? So the money that people are donating to the World Community Kitchen is going to keep people working, and the chefs and the restaurant staff are making these meals, and then people in the community can come and get it. So you're still supporting the local economy, and people are getting a hot meal. And, you know, but if you don't have electricity, your utilities have been taken out by bombs. You can't. It's the use piece, right, of the four components. Like, you can't use it. You might have the food, but you can't use it. So by centralizing it and doing this hot meal program, and it's set up like, and the intention is, he's not trying to feed one restaurant to feed an entire city. It's like, let's go in and let's do this at 20 or 30 different restaurants across the city. All right, so that people can go and they don't have to travel. We don't want people out traveling, right, while there's bombs and shelling going on, or you know, troops in the street. So you don't have to go far, which again is about the access. You don't have to go very far to go and pick up your hot meal from the restaurant that's supporting the local economy. So in terms of the food aid role, I think it's just so exciting, and it's just so clever. And it just makes so much intuitive sense, that because don't want to impact their local economy even worse. And then you have the impact on the wheat, right? So the impact on the wheat farmers. We all suddenly learned that Ukraine is major global exporter of wheat. We didn't know that. You know, average, I had no idea until suddenly they couldn't export their wheat, right? And so we're still going to see the impact of that. I mean, the crisis is still going on, huge impact on the farming community. And so we're going to see the impact on food prices and shortages, you know, for years to come, because you can't just recover, right? If your wheat fields have been hit by, you know, shells and bombs and you've left, or the farmers have died, right? It's not like it's going to rebound immediately. So we're going to continue to see the impact of that. So, you know, it's like a gun gets fired in Ukraine, and suddenly, you know, our flour is more expensive. It's like a butterfly effect. But
in New York City, they have a lot of migrants that have been going into the city, and they put them in a very nice hotel for a while, but it was reported that they were wasting a lot of the food and not eating the food. And I assume that is a cultural difference. They might not like canned cheese as much as I do, you know? So how would you address that, and how do you address that with the international students who also might not be interested in food?
yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that question. So the question is about, like, you know, food aid, and what if people are not familiar with the food and the culturally, and how do we reconcile those two issues? And it's funny because a couple of years ago, I was really lucky. My husband, who is a physics professor at the university, got the opportunity to work in a national lab in Japan for a semester, and the university said that I could teach online. It was pre-COVID. And so I was able to, so our family went and we lived in a city called Tsukuba, which is just outside of Tokyo for a semester. So he worked in the lab and I was doing everything remote. And then our daughter went to school. And I walked into the grocery store. So we had just, you know, we're tired, we're exhausted, we have an apartment. The lab had actually sent over some food for us to help us get started, and then we go to the grocery store. So I go to the grocery store and I don't understand anything. I love food. Okay. No one in my family is surprised that I'm running a food pantry. They're like, like my passion for food and feeding people is like since I was a kid. So it just took me a long time to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up. And I stood there in the aisle of the grocery store. Everything is in Japanese. I don't understand anything. I don't recognize anything. And I started to cry. And I was like, I also was like really tired in that life. But I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I don't know how to feed my family. And I'm like, I have the money. I have an apartment. I have, you know, a stove. And I'm like holding something. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I picked up a few things and found some frozen food, whatever. And then I actually ended up at 7-Eleven. And 7-Eleven in Japan is amazing. But the thing I realized about 7-Eleven is, and they had their line of food, but they had like one bottle of soy sauce, 7-Eleven soy sauce. I was like, and I have my little translator app, and I'm like, wait, that's soy sauce. And I don't have to make any decisions about among the like 75 different kinds of soy sauce. I'm like, I will take the 7-Eleven soy sauce. And I was like, 7-Eleven rice. Okay, 7-Eleven rice. And then in the frozen section, it was like they're all these. I was like, wait, no, I can do this. Like, once the 7-Eleven bread, like I recognize the soups, the ramen, like, and so 7-Eleven saved me. And then I slowly, a couple of weeks, I felt more comfortable and didn't go back to the grocery store. And then I loved it because I started to understand, and I actually did like a class on how to shop at a grocery store in Japan. And then I was like, okay, I'm solid, I'm good, I got this. I can feed my family. But it was really shocking to me. Like I cried. And because I was so overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. And that experience to me was so important as part of my growth and learning to become a food pantry director, because now it's something I got it. And so if you ask a child, like a child, right, to eat something like, oh my gosh, two things that are touching, you know, you get the meltdown. And I know adults who are not, you know, very adventurous. I accidentally served my family like one night, like intestines. I just thought it was pork, and I didn't check the translator, and everyone's like, I was like, this is really chewy. I thought, I don't think I like it. And I'm like, yeah, this is weird, isn't it? And then I checked the translator, and I was like, oh, it's because it's intestine. So, feeling the crisis. All right. And so, like, we can't, just because you're poor doesn't mean you should eat what you get, right? You still want to have dignity. There's no dignity in that. Nobody's happy if they're eating, you know, the food that they don't like. I'm not happy when I'm eating the food that I don't like. So that's one of the, I think it's just about being aware. And maybe part of it is like really thinking about, like, you know, I'm not a picky eater, I'll eat pretty much anything, but like in Japan, like a lot of stuff is fishy tasting. And I'm like, and after a while, I don't want to eat something fishy right now. I don't want to eat a bowl of potato chips that I think are going to be like barbecue and they're fish. Again, like everything is kind of fishy, like fishy crackers. And you get used to it, right? But I'm like, I don't like so we, and I think a lot of it is about being aware. And it's also about talking to people and saying, what do you need? What do you want? Because it can be pretty easy to make those switches, right? To find out what people, to work together and collaborate and have conversations about what are the foods that you actually need and that you'll be able to eat. And how can we provide that for you? Because people aren't going to come to our food pantry if we're not providing the food that they want and that they can eat. I won't. And I can't expect anything more of anybody else. And so with our international students, we have lots of conversations about what they want and what they need. So, you know, it's funny because like the most popular item at our food pantry is rice because of the international students. And it's not the American students who are taking rice. They hardly ever take rice. But it's our international students that's like international, whether they're from, we have a lot of African students right now, they take the rice. We have students from India, they take the rice, students from Latin America, they take like that kind of a world. So and right now actually the U.S. Department of Agriculture just bought a lot of rice from as an emergency supplement because food insecurity is so high in the West right now. So they actually bought rice from rice farmers. They allocated a couple $1 million to rice, and now I see it. So I can get 6 cases of rice for free once a week. So I'm stockpiling it because we go through so much of that. But I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that to have that. Cooking oil is a huge demand. Our domestic students could care less about cooking oil, but our international students, they would all like cooking oil because it's just the way they cook. Right, so shallow frying things and whatnot. Cooking oil is a staple item, or with spices. Anytime we've been able to get spices, we actually work with so there's an Islamic food bank in Toledo, which is a nonprofit that kind of spun off the mosque, and so they're an incredible food program. So they're providing thousands of bags, like Washington local schools every month. So for kids to take home on the weekends, they're running food pantries all over Toledo. They're building another one at a senior living center. They're I actually have a meeting with them about some of the construction stuff next week. So they're paying for that for a new food pantry to be built. They run one in Perrysburg Township. And so they've been able to give us some of the spices, like cumin and turmeric and stuff. So they have they've been able to bulk buy, even though their food pantries are not serving the Islamic community, they're serving the general population, but they have access to some of the suppliers and so we're able to get some of the spices. And our international students are so excited. And I'm excited too, because I want them to feel welcome, right? And they're not going to feel super welcome if our only options are mac and cheese. And Cambridge. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of crops are eaten by animals, and the land is cleared for animals, and you didn't even mention the water needed for all those animals. Why are governments encouraging people to eat less and less meat and dairy? Why isn't that happening?
So the question is about why are governments inspiring people to try and eat less meat and dairy because it's more sustainable? And I have no answer to that question because it does make sense. I do know, I think it was Sweden, the military in Sweden declared meatless Monday. And the idea was supposed to be, I think they also wanted to save money. So it makes sense.
We have that here too. Meatless Monday, you can subscribe to that, you get an email and they'll give you some recipes. And like you say, the need that it is not sustainable. You could see way more people if we did not raise need.
I totally agree. So, and you know, it's an interesting challenge, but the beef industry wouldn't really like that.
Well, in fact, I'm Canadian too. And when I was in Quebec, I was with a lot of people who were vegetarians and vegans. And when I came here to the States, I remember a few times when I made mention of that, and somebody told me, "Do not come between Americans and their meat." And I said, "Oh."
Well said, well said. Yeah, fine.
Seafood is a bigger problem because I don't think, I don't know, the food pantries actually provide seafood that it doesn't last very long unless it's dry. On the other hand, worldwide, there are many cultures that depend on seafood and yet food supply is diminishing. So I'm just wondering how seafood fits into the total picture.
Yeah, that's a great question. The question was about seafood. How does seafood fit into kind of the food security picture? And it's interesting because right now, in Feeding America, I can get, I don't have a freezer. I have a freezer coming. LG has donated a freezer to our food pantry, but I don't have room for it yet. So we're going to do construction and expand into the next room. So we're more than doubling our space, and then I'll have room for the freezer. So, but right now I can get 4 pieces, 4 big boxes of seafood for free. And it's seafood, but it's seafood that like Walmart, Meijer, Kroger have pulled from their shelves, from their frozen sections that wasn't selling. They want to move it. They want to get rid of it. So they send it freezer truck, Feeding America trucks. You might see one. We see them sometimes here in BG too. They're just driving around and collecting food from the grocery stores in this region, and then they're bringing it to the Toledo warehouse, and then food pantries like me go and pick it up. And so right now we can get epic amounts of seafood. And so it's really, and I was really surprised by it. I mean, I can get, when I was there last week, I mean, they had lobster tails in the freezer section that I could have gotten, and I could have gotten for 18 cents a pound. But I don't have a freezer. So, and I don't know if that people don't buy a lot of seafood. I mean, food is expensive. Seafood here is often seen as kind of a luxury item as opposed to like a staple. But one of the big challenges around seafood and fish is overfishing. And so fish, many communities have struggled with being able to continue to provide seafood and fish to their community because they have been overfished. Because the great thing about fishing is that it's easy. Relatively easy. I mean, I grew up fishing. It's kind of easy, but in terms of like, as opposed to like going out and like, if you're going to hunt for venison or something, right? That is much more of a challenge. Hunting is declining here in the United States, which is one reason why we have so many deer. There's actually Ohio is very concerned about the overpopulation of deer, and part of it is because there are fewer people hunting. And just anecdotally, I used to have students every fall who would say, I'm going to miss class, I'm going to go hunting. And so I learned not to schedule like a midterm around the beginning of deer season. And I was like, that's cool. I have not had a student say that to me in probably 10 years. And it used to be like multiple students would be gone. Like it was just a thing. And I was like, okay. And I asked my students, like, do you hunt? And they all say no. We don't, that's not something we do anymore. And even Rhythm, the local, animal wildlife. Yeah. So we had a raccoon in our attic, and so I was talking to him about, and it was not the first time, and he said, we named it George Cooney, the raccoon. So I said, like, why is this the second George Cooney like that we've had? And he said, because kids aren't going out hunting as much. Like they used to go out and maybe some of you did this, like go with a pellet gun and shoot the raccoons and do that kind of stuff that it was like what kids would do. He said it controlled the population of these like kind of past animals. And the kids don't do that anymore. And so we have, 12 turkeys hanging out at the hospital, in the parking lot, and we have deer, and we have raccoons, and more critters, and the deer going deer hunting because there's fewer people are hunting. There's actually initiatives to try and encourage people to do more hunting. But fishing is much easier, right? The startup costs are low, so people, you can go out and you can fish, and you can pretty much, depending on where you are, guarantee that you're going to be able to feed your family that night. But overfishing, right? The big commercial fishing, the long lines, the new technology where you can have, a line of fish hooks that's kilometers long. You drop it off your boat, and the fish, you can catch thousands of fish with just one long line fishing. So the overfishing is a huge issue. And so, when you have that large scale commercial fishing and they take too many fish and it's not being managed properly, then it means that the people who live on the coast who thought that they could go fish and feed their family can't do that.
Apparently it was work fast at this point.
Yeah. And Canada actually has had put on moratoriums on fishing. I mean, back in the 80s to try and save. They created a whole kind of a welfare program for the fishing for people who have families who have been fishing, who are dependent on that because they said you have to stop fishing in the Atlantic because there are no more fish. Like, we're going to lose them all. And so they created called TAG. So they created a program to support families. So paying them to not fish, basically. But that's tough to do, right? And people need to eat. And there's a global demand for that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a great question, Roger. Yeah.
I had a friend work for Oxfam in Canada.
Yeah.
And she sort of got frustrated because she thought there were a lot of people in the office and they weren't doing enough to deliver in the field. How do you know who to get to in that type of case? Because it's not bureaucratic, that it's actually serving our mission as stated.
Yeah, no, that's a tough question. Who do you donate to, right? Who do you support? My heart's with Brown Bag Food Project. We're all volunteers. No money at Brown Bag is going to support salaries. It's tough because, particularly as you get programs grow and expand, and they start to do more logistics, and then there's more paper research that's being done, and and I think that's always, a tough. One of the things that I like to see is I like to support, and this is me personally, totally disagree, but I like to support the people who are on the ground doing the hard work. So like Doctors Without Borders, for example, they are there on the ground in the worst situations helping people. That's why my heart is with Brown Bag, and Amy and Joe Holland who started it. I mean, they are rock stars in the community. Like, the number of people that they literally, have kept healthy and fed is just unbelievable. And it just started with Amy realizing that she was working at Walmart and that some of her fellow employees couldn't feed themselves. They weren't making enough money to be able to feed themselves and their family. And so she started buying groceries while she was working there to give to them. And then more people said to her, "Hey, I know somebody else who's really struggling and doesn't have enough food." And she's like, "Okay." And then Amy kind of realized she can't personally feed everybody who needs it. So then they kind of moved to their garage and they were getting donations, and now it's grown to the location on Sandridge. So I really like those organizations that they're on the ground and they're getting their hands dirty. Doctors Without Borders, the World Community Kitchen, that's just phenomenal, right? They are there in these war zones, in these disaster zones, making soup and making rice and beans and giving it out to people in need. So in my heart, I love those organizations that are, you see them. If they're getting their hands dirty, then take my money.
There are publications that rate charity and tell you if it's all going to the top or if it actually gets to the people. Yeah, Charity Navigator is one you can kind of look and see the different ratings, right? But I want an organization that's not in debt. So I know they're managing their money well, and then they're just doing stuff and getting their hands dirty.
always, tell my students, I'm like, the work of our Falcon food pantry, like, people think it's, like, most of it is like standing outside when it's 12 degrees, unloading a truck and carrying cases of green beans and everything. And then mac and cheese, and soup. I mean, it's like that's just what we have to do. And we have to we get produce in from Feeding America and like half of them are rotten. So we're gonna stand there, we're gonna sort through and throw away the rotten corn because we're gonna, recover, enough so that, 40 people are gonna be able to enjoy corn that night. And like that's just the work that, goes into doing this kind of stuff. So I break meals. Like I just like now I'm kind of sad, but I'm kind of proud. I'm like, cool. That's how I know I did something today. I broke a nail unloading a truck in my heel. We talked like 1 or 2.
Yes. Do you give out recipes at the food pantry?
So that's such a good question, and we're going to. So now you're going to motivate me to actually stop talking about doing it and actually do it. So the question is, do we give out recipes? And we need to do more of that. We tried to do a little bit. At Thanksgiving at the Falcon Food Pantry, we put together 50 Thanksgiving food boxes. And our goal actually was both to help, people who weren't going to be able to go home for Thanksgiving. So it was like a full meal. We can put I love my students say, my student interns made centerpieces. So everybody got a little Thanksgiving centerpiece with a little electric candle. And they made a nice menu and it was a full Thanksgiving meal. But part of it was we wanted our international students to experience a Thanksgiving meal. So we had a little write-up and menu about the Thanksgiving holiday and stuff. So it was kind of 2 things. But we had the recipe because we realized people need the recipes to know how to make stuffing and gravy and that kind of stuff. And so we keep talking about how we need to do more recipes to encourage people. So we have some QR codes in a couple places, but the people too busy to do that. So
do you group a meal together?
We've done a couple of those. We call them Falcon fresh bag meals, and we just got so busy. But our plan is to keep doing this. Now you've motivated me. So I'm gonna tell my students, next week we're gonna get the recipe going and get those meal kits going.
You have a sampling, all you need is the pot, and you can make soup and just give out.
Yeah, we don't have the space for that yet. We didn't anticipate we would be as busy as we are. So we're hopefully someday we can do that. So that because I think if you taste the canned green beans, I think
so there's lots of soup. So they're in a package. All you gotta do is add water.
Right. Yeah, and those actually tend to go pretty quick. Yeah, love our students. Yeah, and also our students are kind of lazy. Love them, but they're kind of lazy sometimes, and they're busy. But so adding if something is eat and serve, ravioli, or add water, yeah, those tend to fly. So I think we talked a little more questions. Ramen noodles, we actually have a sign of limit 2 per visit because we cannot keep ramen noodles inside. And it's 20 cents at the store. I literally have please take the jar of Alfredo sauce that we have, and we get so many food drives and the campus is really down and stuff. So I'm sometimes we have really nice products. We really nice curry dinners right now. And I'm don't eat the 20-cent ramen. Get some. And no, they take the ramen. I get we don't even sit out in our storage room when it comes in. We keep it right by the desk because all day we're just constantly refilling the ramen. It's shy every time someone from my team is refilling the basket of ramen. I like ramen too, but they're what is easy one? So bless our heart. They figure it out. Yeah.
Do local stores ever give you fresh fruit and vegetables that's very close to not being able to sell?
So they give it, so the Feeding America truck comes and picks it up, and then it goes to the Toledo warehouse, and then we get it from the Toledo warehouse. So it would be much easier if we could just go and pick it up, but right now we don't have that set up. But Brown Bag, I know, talked about doing it, because it would just be much easier than us have to I mean, we do get, both of us get deliveries every week from Feeding America, but it was funny because on the delivery that came this week, I got apples, they were kind of and a bunch of peppers, like really, they were like, you know, it's like, okay, they gotta be eaten tonight. And we didn't get enough people, like they went, people were taking them, but not enough. So I actually ended up bringing them to my class. And I was like, hey, do me a favor, and can you take these peppers? And the students were like, well, no, but if we don't want to take them from the food pantry, and like, they're literally gonna go in the garbage. Like, if you're gonna eat, and students were like, well, I'm not eating, like I have plans for dinner tonight. And like, okay, they're not gonna last till Saturday. Like, you gotta take them tonight. So, I mean, the policy check on it. So they're right, but it's, you know, it's that delicate balance between like the stores want to sell it and make money, but then we don't want all that food to go into food waste. So, and unfortunately, sometimes it becomes my problem to then throw it away. So we got a giant box donated of like cleaning supplies from Feeding America, and I opened it up, and it was a hot tub cleaner, and I had 24 bottles of hot tub cleaner. And it didn't smell. I mean, it smelled like chlorine. Like, I was like, and it was so heavy. And it was like, really? Like, this is now my problem, you know? And so it was so heavy that you couldn't, like, we were just like taking them like a couple bottles at a time and throwing them away. So I was like, I did not have the time and energy to like think about who needs hot tub cleaner. So it's always kind of hit or miss. You never know what you're going to get. But yeah.
What do you do with the food waste? Do you use the recycle center here that?
We would like to do more. We throw away because the challenge is we recycle all of our cardboard, but like, you know, when we have these, you know, like pastas and stuff that are expired or dented cans, we have a lot of dented cans and which we are not safe to put out. So for us to like open them up and dump them out and like that's a lot, and so it hurts. But I'm like, I keep telling myself, like, well, at least we run a community garden. Like, we'll plant a tree once a year to like make up for all this. But it's hard, like, and it's like nobody else wants to throw it away, so it keeps being passed down until it gets to us, and then we're the ones who have to throw it away. They actually, like, I felt bad because the campus operations had to bring us a bigger garbage can, and I felt really bad. But I'm like, it's just that's what we do, and I would love to be in a situation where we could like empty stuff and do composting and. Future me hopes to do that. So, but we have goals and like, you know, lots of things we can do better. So those are my future plans.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.